life is suffering. Buddhist scholars and practitioners explain that that translation has a few holes. Sri Lankan Buddhist monk and scholar Sri Dhammamanda explains, the Buddha never expected his followers to be constantly brooding over the suffering of life and leading a miserable and unhappy existence. He taught the fact of suffering only so that he could show people how to overcome this suffering and to move into the direction of happiness. To become an enlightened person, one must have joy, and one of the factors that the Buddha recommended us to cultivate is joy. Joy is hardly pessimistic. So there are the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. The first is that life is suffering. The second is that suffering is caused by attachment and clinging to things. And then the next is that there's a way to absolve your suffering, and that's to try to live in the moment and not cling. And then there's the fourth noble truth, which is the Eightfold Path. Buddhist monk, translator Narada Thera says, instead of trying to rationalize suffering, Buddhism takes suffering for granted and then gives you a prescription to eradicate it. It's much like the action-oriented optimists in Frida Gaidis' commentary. So I've come to understand this Buddhist perspective as life, rather than life is suffering, as life is change. So what they try to teach you to do is to try to enjoy the unique perfection of each moment as it comes, instead of chasing hard up towards the future or trying to wade upstream back towards the past. One could also say, into every life a little rain must fall. Don't cling to being dry. Now, many faiths find themselves accused of a pessimistic worldview. And yet there have been a number of studies over the years that indicate that those who attend religious services regularly are more optimistic than those who do not. Now, interestingly, a University of Pennsylvania study by Sina Sethi and Martin E.P. Seligman titled Optimism and Fundamentalism, which was published in Psychological Science in July of 1993, found that people subscribing to more fundamentalist religions are more optimistic than those who subscribe to liberal religions like our own. Now, I was confused by this. How could that be? Well, what they were saying is that fundamentalist religions tend to integrate their members more fully into their whole lives, so it permeates their whole lives more than liberal religions. All right, I guess I'll have to take that one. And that their services are more optimistic in general. And that leaves me wondering why they would say that. I mean, in some ways, our Universalist forebears were the ultimate optimists. There is no hell. Everyone will be saved. Everyone goes to heaven eventually. As Reverend Forrest Church said in an essay on BeliefNet.com, for all my many failings, the day I wake up dead, I won't be on a cattle car to the fast train to Satan's fiery pit, nor will you. Nor will Old Scratch himself, well, if he actually exists. The devil, too, would be saved. In the good news of universalism, God is a loving God who will not rest until the entire creation is redeemed, until we all find our best selves, until the world is free of suffering. Our faith's message is that God is love and everyone deserves love. How is that getting lost? How is the inherent worth and dignity of every person, how is the justice and equity and compassion that we feel should be permeating everyone's existence, how is that getting lost? Don't know. So I watch a lot of children's TV. I don't know if you guys saw me come in with my daughter. She's this big. I watch a lot of children's TV. And there's a new one based on Fred Rogers called Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. It is a children's television show that connects life lessons to simple tunes. And one of the tunes is, if something seems bad, turn it around, find something good. Well, that seems pretty optimistic. You know, make the lemon out of the lemonade. In fact, Berenstain Bears have a whole episode where they literally have lemons and they have to make lemonade. You can find stories like this in Sesame Street, in Super Y. I don't know if you guys have even heard of Super Y. If you don't have a tiny child, it's a new one. In fact, but Emily, any family show you can think of, from The Cosby Show to Family Ties to Modern Family, Malcolm in the Middle, all of them will have at least one episode that focuses on making the best of things when life doesn't turn out the way you want. Action-oriented optimism isn't just a convenient plot point. It's a skill that we value. It's a skill that we hope to pass on to our children. So now I'm sure you have all heard the saying, optimists see the glass as half full, pessimists see the glass as half empty, and some of you may have even heard the quip, realists will just drink the water. So I would argue that the lesson we have to learn from optimism is not just trying to change the way we see things that are obviously bad or obviously disappointing. We notice when we suffer a really big disappointment. But there are smaller things that happen every day to shape our outlook. Small occurrences that, like the glass of water, can be described in more than one way. Elaine Fox is the director of the Affective Neuroscience Laboratory in the Department of Psychology at the University of Essex in England. In her book, Rainy Brain, Sunny Brain, which she summarizes for us in an article in Scientific American Mind, she talks about how the negative biases that we don't even realize that we're applying to the world can be a major factor in the amount of stress and anxiety we experience. She writes, cognitive psychologists have long known that people who rate higher on measures of anxiety and depression, my colleagues and I call it emotional vulnerability, tend to draw overly negative conclusions when faced with ambiguous social situations. We also know that people who react more emotionally to adversity are at a higher risk of acquiring disorders of anxiety and depression the next time they encounter a stressful period. We encounter many ambiguous social situations every day. It could be somebody being brusque at work when they're usually friendly. It could be an acquaintance that you spotted in the grocery store and waved to who didn't wave back. It could be a car that's sitting at a stop sign and they're waiting for you to go and you're waiting for them to go. The way that we react to and interpret these types of events is determined both by genetics and by experience. The research that Fox and others in the field have been doing indicates that a tendency to cast ambiguous events in a negative light, mull over these events, leads to a more hostile worldview. So, okay, you might not know whether you're seeing these events as being negative or positive. These are ambiguous events that you don't really think about. How would you know if you're an optimist or a pessimist with these little things? Well, the internet has hundreds and thousands of quizzes that can help you with that problem. But researchers often use a couple of simple tests. One of the tests that researchers use is to ask people to listen to homophones, one of which has a neutral interpretation and one of which has a more negative or more positive interpretation. So, for example, if I say die, spell it out in your head. Which one do you spell? D-I-E or D-Y-E? So, the last example, that was the example they gave in the article. But that test is a little bit loaded because how often do you have to talk about like dyeing fabric in real life? Anybody? Yeah. I mean, DIE does also actually have a couple of non-negative interpretations. It could be die-cast toys. It could be, I lost one of my pair of dice. But another test that researchers often use involves software. It flashes images of different scenes, such as a pair of faces with different expressions, and a letter will pop up in front of one face or the other. Now, if the letter pops up in front of a face with a hostile expression, the emotionally vulnerable people will click it faster. And if a letter pops up in front of the more joyful expression, resilient people will click it faster. That's a harder one to fool. In 2002, psychologist Colin MacLeod of the University of Western Australia and his team developed a technique to try to alter the subliminal bias towards optimism or towards pessimism. They used a test similar to the one that I described above, but instead of faces, they would use words, and instead of randomly replacing either the positive or the negative word, they would replace only the positive word or only the negative word. The students were then subjected to a mildly stressful test, and the students who had been trained to pay attention to negative words reported more stress during the test than students who were trained to pay attention to the positive words. This was the first study to show that cognitive bias modification training applies to real-life situations. This shows we can train ourselves to pay attention to the good things around us, or we can train ourselves to pay attention to the bad things around us. But what we pay attention to shapes our attitude. And to take another example from children's television, there was a Berenstain Bear episode where there was a new bear at school, and he was getting teased because he wasn't good at sports. He couldn't catch a ball, he couldn't throw a ball, and Brother Bear was trying to help his friend and kept trying to force him into doing the things that everyone said he should be good at. And by the end of the episode, he realized he'd been focusing on the negatives instead of the positive things that his friend actually was good at. So his friend was really good at wrestling, not so much with the hand-eye coordination. But it's hard to train yourself to look at people's strengths when everyone around you is looking for weaknesses. So cognitive bias modification is also being studied in clinical situations, such as helping people with anxiety and depression not to focus on unflattering perceptions of themselves, unhappy memories, threatening, disappointing behaviors of others. According to Fox, approximately 60% of those who suffer from a major depressive disorder relapse within a year, even with medication and therapy. But negative cognitive biases are among the strongest predictors of relapse. So what can be done about this? Well, one reason that computer-based training is so promising is that it can be delivered on smartphones, on tablets, on personal computers. And it's an added factor that can help people to recover. It can help train people's brains. Now, until the time when mood and outlook boosting computer games are available, Fox recommends a few simple techniques to shake off a negative mood. She says, keeping a diary of a day's events, for example, can remind you later of all the good things that you may have forgotten. Changing your routine can interrupt a dark mood. Take a different route to the grocery store. Call a friend out of the blue. And lastly, give yourself a 15-minute break from your day. That can help you calm a stressed-out brain. Fox alluded to in her passage on tips for ordinary people to look on the bright side that meditation has often been linked to strengthening peace of mind. Carolyn Wright from Natural News writes about a team led by Richard Davidson at the University of Wisconsin that was able to document increased activity in the left anterior region of the brain in novice meditators who participated in an 8-week course. The limbic system is also stimulated by this training, so it's good for you in more than one way. Now, from the abstract of a meta-analysis on health benefits of mindfulness-based stress reduction by a number of people whose names I won't bother with. Mindfulness-based stress reduction is a structured group program that employs mindfulness meditation, just like the Buddhism meditation from what we had been discussing, that alleviates suffering associated with physical, psychosomatic, and psychiatric disorders. The program, which can be religious or non-religious, is based upon a systematic procedure to help enhance awareness of moment-to-moment experience of perceptible mental processes. The approach assumes that greater awareness will provide more perception, reduce negative affect, and improve vitality and coping. So if you embrace the change, embrace every daily moment, that actually helps you to be more optimistic. Although two-thirds of the studies that the team found were not sufficiently rigorous to be included in their meta-analysis, the team did conclude, based on their small sample size of 20 studies, that it does provide an effective coping mechanism. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best seems to be a pretty realistic way to go through life. And for example, after watching a screening of the 1968 classic Night of the Living Dead just before Halloween, I couldn't sleep until I had a plan in place for repelling a zombie apocalypse. Well, only the slow, shambling type of zombies, but, we're working. Okay, that's a bad example for realistic, but the point remains, it's worthwhile to prepare for life's slings and arrows. We should have a spare tire in our cars. We should have an emergency kit in our houses in case of storms. But if you're always preparing for the worst, it can lead you to ignore the good around you. The second half of the axiom, the part we often ignore, is hope for the best. There was another study that was done with college students, and I'm sorry, I don't have the actual names or where it came from, but what they did was they were preparing college students who were going overseas to Australia, and they prepared one set of college students with the mindfulness-based training, and they prepared the other college students by giving them brochures about Australia, what it's like. And the kids who got the mindfulness-based training and who got the training to pay attention to only good things, they reported that they were less frightened, they adjusted better, and their grades were actually better because they were more comfortable in their new environment. So these things are actually applicable to real life. Imagine that, science applicable to real life. The bottom line is that optimism matters. It's not just about paying attention to what's going on around you instead of mulling over a painful past and planning for a terrible future. The golden rule, to treat others as you wish to be treated, extends to interpreting their motivation. Try to assume people are doing the best they can. Try not to take things personally. Try not to dwell on a feeling of being wronged, and try not to dwell on a feeling of wronging yourself. I'm constantly surprised at how kind people can be. Over the holidays, I was mailing 4 gigantic packages to my relatives in Alaska, and I couldn't hold on to my daughter and the packages and close the trunk of the car all at the same time. And someone came over to me, and my negative bias made me tense up and be afraid he was going to berate me for clogging up traffic in front of the post office. And what did he say? "Oh, you look like you're having such a tough time with that. Can I carry those packages for you?" People are so nice. I almost cried. We live in such a good world. Sometimes awful things do happen, and we want to know why. And we want to plan what we could have done differently and make a plan for next time so we can prevent it from happening. But what we can't do is dwell on a terrible occurrence. Whether it's the terrorist attacks from 9/11, the school shooting in Newton, Connecticut, or a local thing that just happened recently that gets you all up in arms. We can't make the focus of our days trying to erase what's already happened. All we can try to do is to move forward into a brighter future. And that brings us to our responsibility. If we are to be optimists who are not trapped in the past, who are not mulling the negatives, who believe that knowing history means not repeating past mistakes, then we have the duty to be action-oriented optimists, to go out and try to create that better world that we know is possible. Mahatma Gandhi said, "We but mirror the world. All the tendencies present in the outer world are to be found within our own body. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies of the world also change. As man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him. This is the divine mystery supreme, a wonderful thing, and the source of our happiness. We need not wait to see what others do." The way that Gandhi's thought shows up on bumper stickers is an easy-to-remember phrase. Be the change that you want to see. Be the change that you want to see. So you can't do it all. No one person can change everything. But you can change yourself. You can assume that the world is doing the best it can and that the best world is out there, and watch the world live up to your expectations. So our closing hymn this morning is number 311, Let It Be a Dance.
Nothing's wrong, there's nothing right. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance.
Service is concluded. We extinguish the chalice, yet may its warmth and light continue in our hearts. May it light your path and guide you until we are together again. Let us continue in fellowship, coffee and conversation down the hall.